Hello, 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 and welcome to Radio Free Filler. For this show, we're coming to you from a different location, just outside a very special place. It's called the Old Time Cafe, and it lives in everyone's memory as a piece of history known only as the good old days. For many people, it's a remembrance of childhood. For others, it's the time of their first romance. But enough talk. Let's go inside.
Hi, welcome back. It's great to see you again. Won't you come in? I'll take you to your regular booth and we can catch up for a little while.
Excuse me, but I think there's something wrong here.
Not at all. Everything's fine.
But I couldn't help noticing. There's no social distancing, and nobody's wearing masks.
Well, the social dancing will come a little later on, and the masquerade is set for next week.
You don't understand. I'm talking about social distancing, not social dancing. And the masks. What about the virus?
Oh, yes, I forgot. You've come here from the year 2020, haven't you?
That's right, and we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, you don't have to worry about that here. You're in the Old Time Cafe, and the pandemic won't happen for years and years.
What year is it then? What about SARS? What about AIDS?
Oh, none of that exists in here. You see, this place is not about any one particular year. It's all about what you remember from the times when you were happy, that's all.
But surely there must have been some trouble somewhere.
Of course, but not in here. This place is not about the way things were, but more about the way things seemed, especially those times when you forgot all about any troubles. Ah, here we are. Won't you take a seat?
Say, this is really nice. This booth is totally cozy.
Now I'll sit with you for a bit, and then I can take your order.
I feel something strange is happening.
You're settling in, that's all. Just let it happen.
It's strange, but it feels wonderful. That's when Eddie looked up and noticed the stage. It was a small wooden stage with dark velvet curtains and a mirror ball and colored lights and things like that. Scattered about the center of the stage were a few flower pots. A stagehand came out and poured some water in the pots, and a 4-man lounge rock band gradually sprouted, along with their instruments, which they began to play as they sang in 3-part harmony.
1, 2, 3, 4. You're a nice looking girl, and you dress real well, and you're looking at me, and I can tell you're beside me, and I feel like hiding. Your person
and that was that. The lights came back up, and Eddie found himself sitting back in the restaurant booth. He glanced at the closed menu in front of him, which read, "The Old Time Cafe." The lettering was clear, but otherwise undistinguished. There was no hint of any Gothic font, no whimsically splayed or ornate lettering, no fake yellowing of the paper, nothing that suggested vintage. The spelling was also entirely straightforward. It didn't say, "Ye Olde Time Cafe" with a Y, or anything self-consciously antique like that. It just said, "The Old Time Cafe," in a matter-of-fact, unadorned, unaged font. The paper was an agreeable cream color and lightly laminated, but fresh and clearly illuminated by the overhead lamp above his booth. The lamp itself was pleasant, with some rainbow trim, and it gave a cheery, comforting, mild light. Eddie shifted on his padded bench, which was warm, soft, and smooth. He opened the menu and was struck by the items listed and their prices. There were listings with names that he hadn't seen for many years, and at prices that were a fraction of what he was used to paying. For example, there were entries for pizza by the slice and entries for whole pizzas, but this menu had whole pizza prices that would have only bought a single slice elsewhere. There was penny candy and 2 for a penny candy, and there were malteds and phosphates and something called a girl cheese sandwich. A cup of coffee cost a dime with free refills. Eddie's amazed stare was interrupted by the clear glass of water that was placed before him. He looked up and saw a cheerful young waitress who smiled at him and said,
"Welcome back, Eddie. It's good to see you again."
The sight of the young girl's face brought back a flood of memories, and Eddie was drowning and at a loss for words. It seemed to him that he knew this girl, or that he had known this girl, or that he had watched this girl and wished that he had known her, or that he had worshipped her silently from afar, or that they had spoken briefly, or that they had never spoken, but their eyes had met for one fateful second, or that they had shared a single kiss on an otherwise lost evening, or any number of other things, and Eddie was drowning in a flood of memories and was still at a loss for words. The waitress smiled at him warmly and patiently.
"Haven't decided yet?"
she said.
"Need a little more time?"
Eddie tried to tell her that he felt for sure that he knew her, or had known her, and she obviously knew him, but he was drowning, and the words would not come out, and he could not find the words.
"Would you like me to sit with you while you decide?"
she offered. Eddie was lost, so lost that he couldn't tell what he was trying to decide. Was he trying to decide on merely buying something to eat? Or was he trying to decide on asking the girl out? Or was he trying to decide about how to declare his undying love? Somehow, some words came out. "Sure, that would be fine." The waitress sat down across the table from him, beaming. Eddie took a deep breath and then managed to utter a complete sentence. "I'm sorry, but I have a terrible memory for names," he said. The waitress just smiled knowingly.
"It's me, Enid,"
she said, and pointed to the name badge that was pinned to her blouse. And there, in neat, plain letters, it said, "Rachel." Eddie stared and mumbled hypnotically, "Rachel?" The girl laughed.
"Sally,"
she said, and pointed again to the name tag. This time the name tag said, "Kate."
"Don't worry.
Laughed Angela.
My friends call me Betty sometimes, or Susan."
Eddie thought for a while. "Jennifer?" he ventured.
"Not yet,
Smiled Beverly.
but maybe later."
"This is quite an experience," said Eddie. who was beginning to relax a bit. "Are you sure I'm not keeping you?"
Not at all, Eddie.
smiled Karen.
I've had my eye on you for a long time, and I've got all the time in the world. Let me just bring you the usual, and we can talk things over during dinner.
"The usual," said Eddie. Yes, I think that would be just fine." Marion gave him a wink and a grin and went on her way.
Hey there, Eddie.
Boomed a hearty voice from over his shoulder.
How's my favorite nephew? Say, that's quite a wink and a grin you've got there, my boy. Did Natalie give them to you?
"Yeah, I guess so," smiled Eddie shyly. Eddie's uncle bounced down to the seat opposite Eddie in the booth.
I can only stay a minute, my boy,
He said,
but I noticed you here and I figured I'd say hello. What have you been up to?
"Well," said Eddie, "I was a 40-something gumshoe in a novel for a while, and then I was a kind of a sea captain, and then I was a little boy, and then I got rich and married 11 women all called Jennifer, and then I died and got cremated, then my ashes got blown around and swept up and put into a little gray wagon, and then I got reconstituted and dumped into a Victorian setting as an expert linguist and famous detective, and then I was an actor in a weird play about the changes over 20 years, and now I seem to be about 45, except I'm in this place which was more like things were when I was about 17, and now I seem to have an uncle who I don't remember ever having before."
That's the great thing about the old-time cafe.
Laughed Eddie's uncle.
Everything here is more like what you remember about the way things used to be, or even the way things should have been. I like it because I get to exist and I'm still pretty vigorous and I got a hot date with a dinner and a showgirl. As for everything else, well, it's great to hear you've been keeping busy. Okay, I gotta run.
And with that, Eddie's uncle moved gracefully away from the booth and off into the evening. It was as if a warm breeze had passed through the cafe, and it seemed to draw in 3 youthful figures who now occupied the place in Eddie's booth which his uncle had just left.
"Hiya, Eddie."
Said the voice behind the sunglasses. Eddie was perplexed. The figure behind the sunglasses was delighted.
"You don't recognize me, do you?"
He said,
"That's great. The perfect disguise. Let me whisper it to you. It's me, universally recognized and acclaimed Bob, the lead actor of the drama club. Only I'm traveling incognito this time. I'll explain later."
"U.R.A. Bob gestured to the fetching young lady to his left.
You remember Kristen Callback, don't you? She was in my last starring production. She broke the bottle on that battleship during the big launching scene. And this,
U.R.A. Bob gestured to the brooding, bearded lad on his right.
this is Igor, the author of the play. Hey, Igor, what gives?
Igor looked up a little ruefully.
Nothing. It's just that I am seated to your right, and I am much more comfortable on the left side of everything. Plus, I also have a naturally saturnine disposition, and I talk a little bit like Peter Lorre.
At this point, Eddie decided to play along. This new trio was interesting enough, and he was getting used to the idea of being in a place where everyone seemed to be a friend. "So, what brings you guys here?" he asked.
Oh, we're part of the usual that you ordered.
Said U.R.A. Bob.
We always meet you here, in one disguise or another. Remember last week when they had that baby naming ceremony with Kristen? That was a tricky one, since she was playing the part of the baby. And then everyone recognized me and broke out into wildly cheering applause. You know, the usual.
"Oh, yeah, sure," replied Eddie, who was neither sure nor yeah, but was willing to go along with, "Oh." "I don't remember seeing Igor, though,"
He was in the back, working on the overthrow of the government.
said U.R.A. Bob.
Say, how's that coming along?
I'm not ready to discuss it.
Said Igor.
Oh, never mind.
Said U.R.A. Bob.
The Overthrow of the Government is this big secret novel that Igor has been working on for the past year.
Really? Said Eddie. How far have you gotten? Igor shot URA Bob a dark glance, then leaned forward confidentially.
It's like this.
He whispered.
I'm still at the idea stage. You know, little beads of notes on napkins. Then the ladies come on over to see what I'm doing, and it's very mysterious.
And that stops the writing for the evening.
URA Bob broke in,
It's a great way to meet the ladies.
said Igor.
Uh-oh!
Said Kristen.
Everybody duck! Here he comes!
Instinctively, Eddie hunched over on his bench. He heard a slow, shuffling sound passing by and then fading off into the distance. Cautiously, Eddie raised his head and saw his companions removing their feathers and artificial orange bills. So, what was that all about? URA Bob gave one final glance behind him.
We're kind of avoiding a wannabe performer. He wants to join our club, and we don't want to hurt his feelings, but he's the worst performer ever.
How bad could he be? Asked Eddie.
He thinks he's a stand-up comic,
Said Kristen.
but he's just sad.
Goes by the name of pugilistica dementia.
Said URA Bob. Oof, offered Eddie. What does he do for an act?
He spent one evening trying to stand up.
Said Kristen.
Then there was that bit about being the anti-mime.
Said URA Bob.
You know, pretending to be a glass box and waiting for someone to go inside him and try to get out.
Just then, Wendy the waitress returned with the food. There was plenty for everyone, and a special side dish for Igor.
Compliments of the house.
She said,
Your favorite, thistles.
Oh, thank you very much.
said Igor.
But you will have to excuse me. I see some ladies in that dark corner booth over there. I think they're waiting to be expecting me.
And with that, Igor took his plate of thistles and crept softly across the room. Then a voice rang out from behind the bar.
Is there a Kristen callback here? I got a phone call for a Kristen callback.
That's my cue.
Said Kristen,
It's been great seeing you, Eddie.
and Kristen made her way over toward the bar.
Can we get the check now?
Said URA Bob.
My treat.
Eddie watched the waitress depart with mixed emotions. Sorry to see her go, but hey, free meal.
Well, kid,
Said URA Bob.
it looks like it's just you and me.
Thanks for picking up the tab, said Eddie.
Not a problem.
Said URA Bob as they munched.
Only I've been thinking. This new incognito bit has its advantages, you know? Sure, I've had a great time being famous, and I've got all the money I need, and I'm not complaining, but I'd kind of like to try something new. A challenge, you know? But it's tough. It seems like I've had so much success at every role I've ever tried. What's left?
I think I got an idea, said Eddie. Have you considered obscurity? URA Bob stopped and considered. Despite his sunglasses, some of the other patrons had started murmuring and pointing.
Hey,
He finally said.
I think I like it.
Eddie also noticed the gathering legion of URA Bob fans. It's going to be a challenge, he said. URA Bob stood up and removed his sunglasses.
I have an announcement to make.
He declared to the adoring crowd.
I am going to attempt my most difficult role yet. I am going into obscurity. Not your tired old star in hiding routine. No, I am going to perfect my role to the point where I can pass among you all unnoticed, unrecognized, unregarded, even famously forgotten. From now on, there will be no more universally recognized and acclaimed Bob. I shall become known as Anonymous Bob, the Great Unknown.
This announcement was greeted with tumultuous cheers. Still needs a little work, said Eddie, as URA Bob's adoring public lifted him upon their shoulders and carried him out of the old-time cafe. Now Eddie looked around. Without URA Bob and his fans, the place seemed empty. He finished eating in silence. Then Eddie looked up.
Hey, Eddie.
Said Wendy the waitress.
My shift ends in about a half an hour, and I've got a little room upstairs. Why don't you go on up and take a nap till I'm finished?
Suddenly, the place seemed full again, at least to Eddie. He also noticed the waitress's nameplate, which said very plainly, Wendy. Sure, said Eddie. That sounds great,
See you soon.
said Wendy the waitress. The name on the waitress's little cap also said, very plainly, Wendy. And the name on the door of the little upstairs room also said, very plainly, Wendy. And Eddie laid his head on the pillow as he rested in the little bed, and he drifted into a gentle, dreamless sleep. And when he woke up, he was all alone, standing on a stage behind a microphone, because this isn't that kind of a show. Whoa! That was really something. Let me see. Where am I?
You're back on the stage of the Radio Free Filler Show.
I am? Wow! I don't know what to say.
Just say, good night, folks.
Okay. Good night, folks.